All right, let's get started. Altair, congratulations on getting first. Rye, welcome. So good to see you. Thank you for that lurk. New setup, you guys. New setup before we get started. So this is the desk I have from home that we are moving because, with the twins coming, we are going to be putting their crib there where this desk was. Piano's a little farther away. Chiho's desk, as you can see now, has an L and she has more space. That's why the wood is darker. I have this nice little drawer now. But this whole setup looks a little bit different. Gotta lean a little more, which kind of sucks, but it's fine. All in all, I'm quite happy with it. It took me a second before I realized you had that as a redemption. Oh yeah, first, of course. Oh, welcome in, Blue. It's good to see you. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Guys, remind me to do shoutouts later when there's more people here. I'll just do a verbal shoutout. Crossing After Dark, Alteric, and Blue are all streamers. Definitely check each other out. I have set up 3 chord progressions here. Oh, Blue, thanks for that hydrate. Blue, Happy New Year, by the way. Rye, Happy New Year. How was your guys' New Year? This is the progression. And I have one long video by a guy named Justin the Trees who made a map of the United States where every state was made out of the state tree. And while he made these videos, he gives you facts about the state tree, and it's a super, super cool series. It's about 90 minutes long in total, and I figure I can just use that whole video. Also, how you been? I totally forgot the meeting Friday. No worries, Alteric. It's always good to see you. Investors to do a video shoot for what? I got COVID for New Year. I'm feeling better. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm sorry to hear you got sick. Yeah, no worries. No, the meeting. Yeah, no worries, Alteric. I'm doing good. Today's the first day of my new schedule. After I have to end stream quite promptly and then teach some English classes. A little nervous, but it'll be okay. We'll start with his voice.
About a year ago, I started a project where I made a map of the United States using wood from each state's official state tree. Now, at that time, I wasn't on YouTube yet. I was making content pretty much exclusively on TikTok. So those videos were made with TikTok in mind. They're shot portrait style. They were a little too long to be YouTube shorts and definitely too short to be full YouTube videos. But now that I got this Volume 2 map going that's made directly for this platform, in which we do 50 all-new species of trees, none of which were on the old state tree map, I wanted those of you that are enjoying this new map to be able to go back and watch that old series without having to go through 50 different minute-and-a-half long videos. So here's a compilation, all 50 states, plus a couple bonus episodes. Make sure to annotate it so that you can jump to the state that you want to watch, or if you feel like kicking back and watching like an hour
Chloe,
and a half
thank you for the resub.
There's nothing wrong with that either. So here it is, the original U.S. state tree map. Let's make a map of the United States where every state is made out of its official state tree. And let's start with my home state of Utah. In 1933, Utah selected the blue spruce as its official state tree. It was selected for its beauty, symmetricality, and importance as a source of lumber. But this isn't blue spruce what I'm working with. Let me tell you why. State trees were still a pretty new thing.
The company I work for has some investors coming, and they're making some sort of video for all the companies they either own or have stocks, and I've only worked for the company for half a year. Oh, interesting.
I
mean, that sounds cool.
Was the Colorado blue spruce. Also, Utah's state bird is the California seagull, so it didn't take long for people to start pushing for something more uniquely Utah. In 2008, a group of elementary school students led a serious effort to change it to the Utah juniper, an important tree that's, actually named after Utah. That effort was protested by a ranchers organization who feared losing the ability to clear grazing lands, and I'll let you take a wild guess as to which group state lawmakers sided with. The school children may have lost the battle that day, but they didn't lose the war, and in 2014, another group of students put forth the bill to change Utah's state tree to the quaking aspen. It was chosen for its natural beauty and prominence in Utah's mountains, but also because of our dear friend Pando, a massive aspen clone that's one of the world's oldest and largest.
At this point, getting to sleep at till 6 sounds like sleeping in.
No ranchers to oppose it, and only a handful of cranky lawmakers saying we should just keep the blue spruce. The quaking aspen became Utah's new state tree. Let's add a new state to our state tree map. In 1936, Oregon became the 8th state to designate an official state tree, and they chose none other than the monarch of the Northwest itself, the Douglas fir. It's hard to imagine Oregon choosing anything else. A majestic tree that dominates the landscape at the Pacific Northwest. It's every bit as unique as it is amazing. First of all, it's not actually a fir tree. It shares qualities with firs and hemlocks, but it's its own unique thing. So it's not a fir named Douglas, it's a Douglas fir. One of the things that makes them unique are their cones. If you see a cone with these little bracts sticking out of them, you know you've got yourself a Douglas fir. They can grow to incredible heights, and in fact, one of the tallest measured trees on Earth is a coast Douglas fir in Oregon, measuring 327 feet tall. The Douglas fir was a crucial tree for indigenous people within its native range. The pitch and bark was used to treat everything from cuts to coughs. Tea brewed from the needles was rich in vitamin C. Its wood and branches were used to make dugout canoes, bows, snowshoes, poles, and a whole lot more. Douglas fir wood is stiff and strong for its lightweight, and there's a good chance it was used to frame your home. The Doug fir is also about to be found inside countless homes, as it's one of the most popular Christmas trees around. And hey, we're all done with our Douglas fir, Oregon. Easily one of the most fitting state trees around. I give it a 10 out of 10. If you're from Oregon, tell me what you love about the Douglas fir, and for everyone else, what state should I do next? Okay, thanks, bye! It's time to update our state tree map, and we've got a smaller piece of wood this time, so that means we're heading east. That's right, today we're covering the great state of Vermont, which in 1949 designated the sugar maple as its official state tree. And for good reason. It's an iconic, gorgeous, and important tree, but the thing it's most well known for, especially when it comes to the state of Vermont, is maple syrup. Now, only a handful of species of maples produce the sap that's used to make maple syrup, and the sugar maple is by far the most prodigious of them all. In colder climates, these maple trees store starch in their trunks and roots before winter, and the starch is then converted to sugar that rises in sap in late winter and early spring. The sap is then harvested by drilling holes into the trunk of the tree, then boiled to evaporate most of the water, leaving the concentrated syrup behind. Maple syrup is a uniquely North American flavor, having been used by indigenous people since long before European colonizers arrived. And interestingly, it's not yet known exactly all the compounds responsible for its distinctive taste, which is why the fake stuff never hits quite like the real thing. We're all done and out of time, so tell me your favorite thing about maple syrup or maple sugar, and let me know what state we should do next. This is the Eastern White Pine. It's the state tree for 2 states. The one we're doing today is none other than the Great Lakes state itself, our mitten-shaped friend, Michigan. It was on October 14th, 1955, that Michigan designated the Eastern White Pine, scientific name Pinus strobus, as its official state tree. The effort was spearheaded by a group of school children who were learning about the tree's importance to Michigan's economic history. See, the state was the national leader in lumber production from 1870 to 1900, which brought in over $4 billion, not adjusted for inflation, to the state's economy at the time. And most of that was thanks to the Eastern White Pine.
Crazy.
This lumber is highly useful, quite strong for the wood's extreme lightweight. Lumberjacks nicknamed the tree the cork pine because of how easily it floated, which made it simple to transport to local sawmills. The good news is that white pine is one of the more rapid-growing northern forest conifers, which means that we've been able to reforest much of the areas cleared by the indiscriminate logging practices of the past. But the bad news is that we lost nearly all of the old-growth trees that are so important for any native ecosystem. Remember, yes to sustainable logging, but also yes to protecting old growth. The tree has a lot of other things to offer aside from its outstanding wood. Its needles contain more vitamin C than lemons and can be used to make a healthy and tasty herbal tea. Pine resin has been used by many tribes to waterproof baskets, buckets, boats, and more. Pine resin also has a high number of efficient antimicrobials and has been used to successfully treat infections and even gangrenous wounds. The Eastern White Pine is an awesome and impressive North American conifer, and in fact, Henry David Thoreau once said there is no finer tree. There's a lot more I'd like to tell you about it, but we're out of time. The good news is that this is the state tree of another state, and it has some really interesting ties with this tree, so we'll be able to talk about it more then. But for now, let's get our Eastern White Pine, Michigan up on the board. That's it for now, so all my Michigan friends and the rest of you, let me know your favorite thing about the Eastern White Pine, and tell me which state we should do next. State tree time, and I've got a piece of cypress wood here, so let's head down to the bayou to talk about an exceptionally cool state tree. It's hard to think of a better choice
Alteric, you
for
here?
the state of Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Than the iconic bald cypress tree. It's a stunning and mysterious tree, and every part of it simply shouts, "Yo, you're in the swamp now, my friend." It's a deciduous conifer, meaning that it sheds its needle-like leaves over the winter, and you can even get a nice autumnal showcase as those leaves turn red and orange in the fall. Another thing the tree is well known for are its knees. They're prominent growths that form above the roots of the tree, and their function is actually unknown. Some hypotheses include that they might help provide air to the tree's roots, reduce erosion, or help stabilize the tree. Bald cypress trees have long been primarily used for their wood. Many indigenous tribes have used them to make canoes, houses, cooking tools, toys and drums, and a whole lot more. The wood is water resistant and has made an ideal material for anything that's exposed to the elements like fence posts, shingles, planking in boats, and so on. The tree also plays a crucial role in the ecosystem of swamps within its native range. They're really great at soaking up floodwaters and preventing erosion, and they can even help in removing the excess nitrates and phosphates that can cause toxic algae blooms. Every time I've been lucky enough to visit a bald cypress swamp, I'm completely so unlike any forest I've been in that I swear I'm on an alien planet, except one that's like extremely haunted. And with that, we're done with our bald cypress, Louisiana. Definitely one of the most fitting state trees around, and seriously, if you get the chance, go see them with your own eyes. And that's it for now. Tell me what you love about the bald cypress, and let me know which state we should do next. Today we got a piece of wood that's so popular that 3 different states have chosen to be their official state tree. Let's start with the state that chose it first, which just so happens to be the Hoosier state itself, the great state of Indiana. As for the wood, it comes from the tulip tree, which was designated as Indiana's official state tree in 1931. It's a grand and impressive tree that blankets much of the U.S. east of the Mississippi. In fact, Indiana had actually first honored the tulip tree way back in the 1800s, featuring the tree's distinctive leaves on its state seal. Of course, the most distinctive thing about the tree are the flowers that give it its name. They bloom anywhere from April to June and are typically pale green or yellow with a striking orange band. They also produce large amounts of dark nectar, which in turn yields a rich amber honey famous for its strong and unique flavor. The tulip tree goes by many names, often the tulip poplar and the yellow poplar, and in fact, if you're buying poplar wood at the hardware store, it's almost certainly from the tulip tree. But the tree's actually not in the poplar family at all. It picked up the name as a result of its tremendous height, as it's the tallest eastern hardwood, growing more than 160 feet tall, with the tallest recorded living one reaching over 191 feet. It's an incredibly fast-growing tree, and its wood is soft and lightweight, yet strong and stable, and quite easy to work. And speaking of wood, we're all done with our tulip tree, Indiana. It really is an impressive eastern tree, and we'll be able to talk more about it when we get to one of the other 2 states who chose this tree, but for now, let's get Indiana up on the board. And hey, look at this, we've got our first neighbor states together. I know this is something a lot of you were super eager to get to, and I know I sure was. As always, tell me your favorite thing about the tulip tree, and let me know who we should cover next. This is a piece of pecan wood, and it's nice and thick, but it's not as wide as it needs to be because the next state on our map is a big one. That's right, we're going to resaw and glue this wood to make a piece big enough for the Lone Star State itself, the great state of Texas, which all the way back in 1919 selected the pecan as its state tree. And I gotta say, it's a splendid choice. The pecan tree is a species of hickory native to the south central U.S., and its name comes from an Algonquin word referring to any nut whose shell needed to be cracked open with a stone. And speaking of the tree's name, if there's one thing everyone can agree on these days, it's that nobody can agree on the correct way to pronounce pecan. As for me, I say there's no wrong way to say it. I'm just happy to hear you talking about this majestic and important tree. The trees themselves are quite impressive. They grow from 60 to 130 feet tall.
I like that.
And produce nuts for as long as 100 years. Pecan wood is used to make flooring, tool handles, and furniture. It's also popular for smoking meats, imparting a sweet, nutty flavor. But of course, the pecan nut is what it's really all about with this tree. And it's actually not technically a nut, but a drupe, meaning a fruit with a single stone or pit in the center, which is the edible nut portion that we eat. As you can imagine, the tree had been a tremendously important food source to indigenous people within its native range. Its rich, buttery flavor made the nut more than just a food, but a delicacy and a valuable commodity, leading many tribes to cultivate the tree throughout the region. Nowadays, pecans are enjoyed worldwide, with about 300 million pounds being grown per year. And there you have it, our pecan wood Texas is done and ready to go up on the board. Some really cool looking wood from a truly excellent tree. Tell me your favorite way to enjoy pecans, and let me know which state we should do next. It's time to add a new state to our map. And this time, we've got a piece of white oak. You guys, this smells so good. It's a popular one. 3 different states have chosen it as their official state tree, and the one we're going to start with is the great state of Maryland, which designated the white oak as its official state tree in 1941. A quintessential Eastern American tree that can be found in all sorts of habitats in nearly every corner of that half of the country. They can grow to be impressively large, especially when in the open, striking grand profiles with wide canopies and huge extending branches. They can also live to be quite old, typically up to 200 to 300 years, but with some much older documented specimens. In fact, Maryland selected the white oak in honor of one of those specimens. The Y oak, located in Y Mills, Maryland, was a grand old white oak tree and a fixture in the state. With a trunk measuring 31 feet and 10 inches in circumference and a crown that reached 96 feet high with a spread of 119 feet wide, the Y oak was the largest known white oak tree in existence. It lived well beyond the average age for a white oak thanks to tremendous efforts made to keep it as healthy as possible, but time comes for us all, and in June 2002, a heavy thunderstorm and high winds toppled the grand old champion. Wood from the fallen tree was salvaged and distributed to artists and craftspeople who created all sorts of pieces to honor the tree. Today, the site of the Y oak remains a state park where you can see a large portion of the salvaged trunk, as well as a sapling clone from the original tree, which was planted in the remains of its stump in 2006. And hey, would you look at that, our white oak Maryland is done. I know we didn't get into our usual set of tree facts this time, but we have 2 other states who chose this tree, so don't worry, we'll be able to learn more about it in another episode soon. For now, in honor of the Y oak, tell me about any named trees that you've been able to hang out with before, and of course, let me know which state we should do next. All this wild, swirling grain and this really cool gray color means that this is Buckeye Pearl, so you know what state's up next. That's right, it's time for the great state of
did not know.
Ohio, which designated the Ohio buckeye as its official state tree in 1953, but to be clear, it had already been the unofficial state tree for well over a century. So close is Ohio's tie with the tree that the state nickname is the Buckeye State, and you've got the Ohio State University Buckeyes, complete with their mascot, a giant walking buckeye nut named Brutus, and Ohioans themselves are known as Buckeyes. The Ohio buckeye is a smaller but distinctive tree, most known for its nut-like seed, which indigenous people named the tree after, as the markings on them resemble the eye of a deer. Now, while they might look tasty, the high levels of tannic acid in buckeyes actually make them quite toxic, although you can leach the tannins from the nuts, making them edible, a process invented by indigenous people within the tree's native range. Indigenous people have many other uses for the buckeye as well, including extracting tannins from the seeds for use in traditional leatherworking, drying the seeds to make jewelry and other crafts, as well as medicinal uses like treating pain from arthritis or rheumatism, among other ailments. Buckeye wood doesn't have too many uses, although it was once frequently used for prosthetic limbs due to its light weight. The wood's also usually pretty plain, but as you can see, that's not the case for their burls. Found under the earth, buckeye burls contain a striking selection of colors from brown to blue and black and even red. I mean, just look at this final result. Let's get our Ohio buckeye burl up onto the map, and look at this, we've got 3 neighboring states already. Excellent stuff. Tell me your favorite thing about the buckeye tree and let me know what state we should do next. I got good news. I live within the native range of our next state tree, so how about we go on a quick expedition to see if we can find one. Oh, there's one. We had to venture long and hard, but we finally found it, the state tree of the great state of Colorado, the blue spruce, scientific name Picea pungus, also known as the Colorado blue spruce. Colorado school children voted to make it their state tree on Arbor Day in 1892, but the state assembly didn't make it official until 1939.
Welcome, Raiders. Josh, I didn't know you were streaming. What's up, bro? Guys, do check out our friend Josh, who's been a friend of the channel for a little while. You know what? I'll just use this camera. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Johnny Bailey. I'm an independent music producer. I grew up in Chicago, and I'm currently living in Japan. We normally stream music production, which is what we are doing today, but we do play games as well. And this month is January, so we will actually not be playing games this month. Every stream is going to be a music stream where we just jam out and have a good time. Welcome in, Raiders. Josh, how are you? How's your stream? What's up? Oh, not too much, you know, just vibing, making some music. You know how it is. Good. What were you playing? What were you playing? XCOM. Very nice. Stream was okay. I got kind of frustrated with the game. I mean, I feel that.
Native to the high ranges of the Intermountain West. They're typically found at altitudes of 5,500 feet to 10,000 feet and grow to be about 75 feet tall. The blue spruce's most iconic trait is its distinctive bluish-green color, but did you know their needles are actually green? The blue color comes from a wax coating each needle, and as a result you get a pretty wide range of colors from one tree to the next, depending on just how much bloom there is on the needles of each particular tree. You can now find the blue spruce well outside of its native range, as its unique color and symmetrical shape has made it a popular landscaping tree not just throughout the U.S., but the entire world. Also, this time of year, many blue spruces have made their way indoors, as it's a pretty popular variety of Christmas tree. Indigenous tribes within the tree's native range have had many uses for the blue spruce. An infusion of the needles treats colds and stomach problems, as well as rheumatic pains. The tree also has ceremonial uses, and blue spruce twigs are given as gifts to bring
I'm doing good.
Also,
I'm doing good.
as
Just
with all
jamming out.
spruce trees, fresh blue spruce tips can be used to make a tasty tea rich in vitamin C. And we're all done. Look, I know this is a really complicated one, and a lot of you doubted that I'd actually be able to make this shape, but I think we pulled it off. That old log had been sitting around my garage for quite a while, so this piece has got some nice character to it with the cracks and the spalting in there. And now that it's looking great up on the board, tell me your favorite thing about the blue spruce, and let me know what state we should do next. This is a piece of pine wood, and I'll be honest, I don't know what kind of pine tree it's actually from, but the good news is that doesn't really matter. Because today we're tackling the great state of North Carolina, which in 1963 designated the pine as its official state tree. That's right, not any particular species of pine tree, just the pine. See, there are 8 species of pine trees native to North Carolina, and in a move that resonates with me probably a little too much, the state assembly opted to honor them all at once so as to not leave any of the other 7 out. Here's a quick fun fact though, North Carolina is the only state with an official state toast. This kind, not this kind, which does single out one species of pine in its opening line, which goes, "Here's to the land of the longleaf pine." Pine trees trees are also the source of the state's nickname, the Tar Heel State. Thanks to its abundance of pine trees, the region was an important naval source of tar, pitch, and turpentine, all of which come from the pine tree. By the mid-1800s, more than 2/3 of all turpentine distilleries were located in North Carolina. As a result, the state was often called the Tar and Turpentine State, leading to locals being given the pejorative nickname Tar Heels, which was quickly reclaimed by North Carolinians as an expression of regional pride. The species of pine trees native to North Carolina include the aforementioned longleaf, as well as the loblolly, pitch, eastern white, pond, shortleaf, table mountain, and Virginia. There's not nearly enough time in a single TikTok to cover all the uses indigenous people within these 8 trees native ranges have used and do use them for. Their wood is a building material, their pitch is a source of tar and glue, as well as medicinal purposes to treat burns, cuts, and boils. Needles used to weave baskets, fat wood for kindling, all that just scratches the surface. Suffice it to say, the pine tree is versatile, vital, and a good friend. But we're out of time and all done, and our pine North Carolina turned out pretty nice. Oh yeah, these gray blue streaks that you see, they're the result of this piece coming from a pine tree that was killed by the pine beetle. But that's another topic for another time. For now, let's admire how this one looks on the board. Tell me your favorite species of pine tree, and let me know what state we should do next. It's state tree time, and check it out. It's a log. Specifically, it's a piece of pinyon pine, which means the state that we're making today is the land of enchantment itself, the great state of New Mexico, which designated the pinyon pine as its state tree in 1949. Now, real quick, before I get into this excellent conifer, I know that in some parts of the country people pronounce it pignon, and that's great. Around here, we like to celebrate diverse regional pronunciations because it's just more fun that way. And however you pronounce it, the pinyon is a truly admirable southwestern tree. There are actually 2 primary species of pinyon native to the U.S., the single-leaf pinyon, Pinus monophylla, and the one we're focusing on today, the 2-leaf pinyon, Pinus edulis.
No worries, Josh, no worries. Go ahead.
It's a small to medium-sized conifer native to the 4 corner states, hardy and drought-resistant. It's usually found at elevations of 5,200 to 7,900 feet. What it's most well known for are its large edible seeds, which you of course know as pine nuts. The pinyon pine produces the largest edible seeds of any pine tree native to North America, and as such it was and remains to this day an immensely important tree to the indigenous tribes who live within its native range. It's a truly delicious nut that's traditionally prepared in a variety of ways: roasted, ground into flour, eaten raw, made into pine nut butter, and the annual fall harvest of pine nuts is an important social and ceremonial tradition. It's important to note, though, that the vast majority of pine nuts sold in the United States don't come from the pinyon pine. They come instead from other species and are harvested and imported from overseas. The tree's on the smaller side, so the wood isn't really used as a building material, but it's quite hard for a conifer and does make for an excellent firewood, burning long and hot. It's also extremely aromatic, providing a wonderfully unique sweet smell both in the wood itself and also when being burned. So I'm really happy we got to do this one, and I was able to talk to you more about this, my personal favorite pine tree. In my opinion, it looks pretty great up on the board. Let me know if you have any favorite pine nut-based recipes, and of course let me know what state we should do next. I'm really excited about this because this is a piece of wood from a state tree that is very seasonally appropriate for the fact that we're in the thick of the holidays. Because today we're making the first state itself, the great state of Delaware, which in 1939 designated the American holly as its official state tree. The American holly, scientific name Ilex opaca, is a broadleaf evergreen tree that grows to be about 30 to 60 feet wide and up to 100 feet tall. Its native range spans from the southern U.S. across the mid-Atlantic and to as far north as parts of Massachusetts. The American holly is easily mistaken for the European or common holly, which was imported to the U.S. and is frequently found as a landscaping shrub across the country. European holly leaves have that iconic curling shape, while the American holly has somewhat softer, flatter leaves with much sharper spines on the tips. The tradition of using holly leaves and berries as an indoor decoration during the cold, dark winter months actually dates all the way back to Celtic times and was eventually adopted as a symbol for Christmas. Here in the U.S., you're probably more likely to see European holly used decoratively, but the American holly has long been a popular decoration, especially within its native range. Now, holly berries are toxic to humans, often causing diarrhea, vomiting, and dehydration if ingested. Indigenous people within the tree's native range have made tea from holly leaves to treat colds and coughs, while bark tea was once used to treat malaria and epilepsy. The American holly is also used for its wood. It has a remarkably uniform pale white color with almost no visible grain pattern. As such, it's long been a popular decorative wood used for carvings and other fine woodworking purposes. And that's exactly what we've got here in our adorable little snowy white Delaware. It really is an interesting wood. You have to look real hard and close to spot any grain or pattern at all. And it looks great up on the board. Tell me what types of trees or plants you like to bring inside to decorate your house during the winter time, and let me know what state we should do next. This is a piece of wood from the sugar maple, which is the state tree for 4 different states, and one we already covered when we did Vermont. The good news is maple is a wood that can have quite a bit going on in there, and so I found a piece for us that has just a little bit of burl. And the state we're going to make out of this piece is the great state of Wisconsin, which designated the sugar maple, scientific name Acer saccharum, as its official state tree. It was first selected as an unofficial state tree by a vote of Wisconsin school children in 1893, beating out
One of the
oak,
things I've
pine,
learned from
and
this
elm.
video is that a
During the
lot
state's
of state
centennial
trees were
celebration in
chosen by school
1948,
children.
the tree won yet another vote led by school children, so the state legislature decided to make it official the very next year. Its native range spans from southeastern Canada through the northern U.S. and as far south as Tennessee. It does best in areas with cold winters as it requires a hard freeze for proper dormancy. Also, its seeds will only germinate at temperatures just slightly above freezing in the springtime, a property that isn't shared by any other known species of tree. Like we covered in our Vermont video, the sugar maple is the most prodigious of the few species of maples that produce the sugary sap used to make maple syrup and maple sugar, a practice invented by indigenous people within the tree's native range. Fun fact, it takes about 40 gallons of maple sap to produce a single gallon of maple syrup. Other parts of the sugar maple tree are also edible, including the seeds, which can be soaked, boiled, and roasted. The sugar maple tree is also highly prized for its lumber. Indigenous people in the tree's native range have used it to make paddles and oars, bowls, cooking tools, and furniture, among other things. These days, maple wood is used in all sorts of applications, but one fun thing is that it helps us play some of our favorite games. It's the most common wood used in basketball courts, bowling alleys, and pins, pool cues, and baseball bats. It's also wood that can have a lot of different types of figure, as we're seeing here in our final Wisconsin. Maybe we'll be able to take a look at some of the other types of figured maple in one of the 2 remaining states who chose this tree. But in the meantime, tell me your favorite game made possible by maple wood, and let me know what state we should do next.
Sebastian, welcome in. Congratulations on
We've
second.
already covered before, but once again, I found a pretty unique and interesting version of the wood from that tree for us. I mean, look at the colors. It's like purple and stuff.
You were
Today we're
definitely here
making the
second.
great state of Tennessee, which in 1947 designated the tulip tree, scientific name Liriodendron tulipifera, as its official state tree. The tree was chosen for 2 reasons. 1, because it spans from one end of the state to the other, and 2, due to its extensive use in the 19th century in constructing houses, barns, and other farm buildings.
Rye, welcome
As I already
back.
covered
How
in the
are
Indiana
you?
Video, the tulip tree is often called the tulip poplar, and its wood is simply called poplar wood.
Good to see
The tree
you.
actually isn't in the poplar family at all. Something we didn't have time to get into during that video is the rich history of traditional and
Doing
cultural
good. I'm
uses
glad. How was
indigenous
dinner?
tribes had for this tree. Parts of the tulip tree,
I am
including the bitter
good.
inner bark, have
Right,
been used
today
traditionally as
is the
medicine to
first
treat
day-
parasites, coughs, rheumatism, fever, and snake bites.
Today's the first day of my new schedule, so after this, I need to go teach a bunch of English classes. I'm going to be teaching English starting this week for the next 6 months.
Tulip tree bark can also be used
I'm a little
to make
nervous,
gold
but I'm
dye.
pretty sure it'll be
The tree's
fine.
large, straight trunks
I'm about
make
to
it
just
an
get
excellent
super
source for
busy.
dugout
You know,
canoes, as well as
my
a really
schedule for work
exceptional
is going to get
building
busier, and
material.
then, you know, we're going to have
Speaking of its
twins,
wood,
so
this piece
crazy.
we're working on here is what's known as rainbow poplar. It's an occurrence which isn't necessarily common, but also isn't particularly rare or scarce. Basically, it's tulip tree wood that's been mineral stained, causing a wide variety of colors to appear, including green, purple,
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be
shades
fine.
of gray,
It's gonna be an
and
easy day
red,
today.
blue, and black. There's a lot of speculation about the precise cause of this natural phenomenon, but no one really knows for sure. Either way, our rainbow poplar Tennessee is certainly striking. From regular pale poplar coloring on one end to rich bands of green and purple mineral
Doesn't that look
stained
nice?
wood,
Oh yeah,
it
my
adds
wife
a
is
nice
having
pop of color
twins.
to our map. Remember to check out the Indiana
Thanks.
video.
Thanks,
if you wanna
Sebastian.
learn
I
more about
appreciate
the
it.
tulip tree, but otherwise, let me know what state we
Oh
should
my gosh, you
do
guys.
next.
Also,
New
no
year,
pressure,
new state tree.
but we do have a registry
I've
if
been
anyone
trying
wants
say
to
something
buy
fun and
anything
clever to
for
start
the
this out,
twins.
but I
Do have a
maybe I'm
registry
off
in
my
chat.
game. How are you?
No pressure.
Let's have a good
I put it in because
Okay,
some
let's-
people did ask
Yep,
me
let's
about
talk
it.
about this.
Well, actually,
Today we're
they
covering
asked
the
my
Garden
wife
State
about it
itself,
from
the
my
great
stream,
state of
so
New Jersey,
I
which
put
in
that in.
1950 designated the northern red oak, scientific name Quercus rubra, as its official
Oh, this
state
one's so
tree.
pretty.
A large, fast-growing tree, the northern red oak typically grows
gonna
about
ask,
2
what
feet
did you
per
need?
year
Well, there
until
is
reaching
a
full height at
registry
around
right
90
there.
feet
You can
tall
see,
and
right.
up to
Thank
over
you so much.
140
Yeah, guys, no
feet.
pressure
It's
about
a
that.
popular tree that does quite well transplanted, and naturalist Joseph S. Illick once called the northern red oak
Friends
one of the
gave us a
handsomest,
crib.
cleanest, and stateliest trees in North
A few of the
America.
big items
It's the most
we've
prominent
gotten,
member of
but
the
there are
red
other
oak
ones we have not
group,
gotten
which
yet.
can be
We'll
differentiated
see.
from white oak trees primarily through several methods, most easily by examining their leaves. Red oaks typically have pointed ends on their leaves, while white oaks are usually rounded. But it's the colors of the tree's wood that give the groups their names. Red oaks have a brighter colored wood with pink and red tones, and white oaks have darker brown and tan wood. Speaking of wood, the northern red oak is the largest source of red oak lumber, which isn't quite as highly valued as white oak, but is still widely used for flooring, veneer, interior trim, fence posts, furniture, and more. Northern red oak acorns have been a traditional staple food for several indigenous tribes within the tree's native range. They're more bitter and higher in tannins than most of their white oak cousins, but those tannins can be leached out of the seeds to make them more palatable. As As with all oaks, the tree's bark and inner bark is an antiseptic and astringent.
Thank you, Rye.
Both externally to stop
She's
bleeding
super
or
cute.
treat
She's
rashes and burns,
has still 8 more
internally
weeks.
to treat severe coughs,
And is
hoarseness,
very pregnant. The twins are big
I'm really
and
happy with
they
how our Red Oak, New Jersey
are
turned out.
very
It's fun to look at, and having it right
active.
next to our White Oak, Maryland helps us see some of the differences between the two types of wood. That gives us our first state of the year up on the board.
Was
Happy
Zoe a big
2022,
baby?
Everyone. Let me know what you'd like to do this year, and of course, what state
The
we should
twins,
do
both
next.
of the twins
Got a
are
piece of
already
White Oak
larger
here,
than
which is a
normal
state
for
tree we've already
Japan-sized
covered before,
babies.
And today we're going to talk about a pretty famous White Oak tree. Hi, Sal. Sal's a fan of history. That's right. Today we're covering the great state of Connecticut.
6
which in
pounds. Not bad, not bad.
1947 designated the white oak, scientific name Quercus alba, as its official state tree. But for centuries prior to that, Connecticut already had one very specific white oak designated
I'm like
as its unofficial
doing the
state
conversion
tree.
for Gills.
That's right.
Is my wife
Today
on bed
we're
rest?
gonna
She's
talk
not
about
on
the
bed
chart.
rest yet, but she is definitely needing to take it easy. She's already on maternity leave, so she has 8 more weeks and she started her
white
leave now.
oak in what is now Hartford, Connecticut. The tree was a fixture in early colonial Connecticut, but its legend grew significantly after the Connecticut Charter incident. In 1662, Connecticut had been granted a royal charter by King Charles II, permitting the colony to make some of its own rules and elect local officials. In the 1680s, after Charles died, his brother King James II disapproved of the charter and sent a royal governor to retrieve it. The colonists refused to give it up, and as legend has it, one night as the colony leaders debated the governor, the candles in their room blew out, and in the cover of darkness, the charter disappeared and was hidden in the trunk of the nearby large white oak tree, where it remained secret and safe. It then became known as the Charter Oak, a pre-revolutionary symbol of Connecticut's resistance to royal rule. The old tree stood all the way till August 21st, 1856, when at a tremendously old age, it fell during a violent
So,
storm.
Xavier, how's your
All
son
of
handling it?
Hartford
He's
mourned
doing
that
okay.
day. Church bells tolled across the
We've
city,
gotten
and at
a bit
sundown,
closer. I think he's kind of prepping for it, but he has no idea, right? He's the oldest. He has no
There were
idea
immediate calls to
what's
salvage
going to
as much
happen.
wood from the Charter Oak as possible, and countless artifacts were
excited.
crafted from the tree, including the state governor's desk, a chair in the state capitol used by the Senate president.
All right, guys, I think it's time to start a new pattern.
And a whole lot more. And while our nice little White Oak, Connecticut may not have come from the Charter Oak, it still looks pretty nice up on the board. Tell me what your favorite historical tree is, and let me know what state we should
We're going to
do
have to
next.
mess with his
What
voice
I've got
first.
here is a piece of wood from maybe the most requested state tree so far, top 3 for sure. And I gotta be honest, it's been quite the journey to get this to you. From completely obliterating a piece of it that I was trying to dry out in the microwave to taking a short break to battle our old friend Omicron, I'm happy to say that we're finally ready. Yep, today we're gonna make the great state of Arizona, which in 1954 selected the Palo Verde as its official state tree. It gets its name, which is Spanish for green stick, from
piano
its
time,
smooth,
okay.
bright green bark. See, unlike most trees, the Palo Verde only does a third of its photosynthesizing through its leaves, and the rest is
I have
done through
no
its bark.
idea.
In fact, during extensively dry and hot periods, it can shed its leaves and rely entirely on said green bark. There are 2 primary species of Palo Verde in Arizona, the blue Palo Verde, scientific name Parkinsonia
It is a very cool
florida,
series. I love
and
this
the
series.
Foothills Palo Verde, scientific name Parkinsonia microphylla. And both these species share the honor of being Arizona's official state tree. The Palo Verde has long been important to many indigenous tribes in Arizona. The tree's seeds are edible and akin to green peas or soybeans when eaten tender and young. Mature seeds, meanwhile, can be toasted and ground into a flour high in protein. The bright yellow blossoms that adorn the tree in the springtime are also edible. They're quite sweet and can be eaten either fresh or cooked. The Palo Verde's striking green color, annual blossoms, and drought resistance has also made it a popular landscaping tree in desert climates throughout much of the Southwest. I want to give a quick thanks to a woodworker named Mickey Johnson who was kind enough to reach out to me on Instagram and send me this piece of Palo Verde wood. It's a wood that's rarely used outside of hobby applications, but makes for pretty decent carving wood, I think. Its bright yellow color certainly looks striking up there on the board, and that's Palo Verde. Tell me the last time you ate some tree blossoms, and as always, let me know which state we should do next. Time for another state tree, and check out this gorgeous slab of wood that I got in the mail.
Why did this change?
Wow. Today we're making the great state of Alabama.
Hey,
whose
Zoe.
official state tree is the longleaf pine, scientific name Pinus palustris. It's a tall conifer, typically reaching heights of 100 to 120 feet and a diameter of 28 inches. Prior to extensive logging, the tree often reached heights of over 150 feet tall with a diameter of 47 inches. The tree gets its name from its extremely long needles, which indigenous tribes within the longleaf pine's native range used to weave baskets, a practice that continues to this day. Prior to European colonization, longleaf pine forests dominated as much as 90 million acres, stretching across the southeastern U.S. Sadly, nowadays only about 3% of that vast original longleaf pine forest remains after having been deforested and either replaced with faster-growing loblolly and slash pine or cleared for development. It's also a tree that's highly dependent on wildfire to thrive. Native tribes have had a long history of periodic burns, which help keep the ecosystem healthy, allowing old growth trees to drop seeds, as well as restricting the fires to lower temperature affairs to which the new growth seedlings are resistant. So the combination of clear-cutting old growth forests and fire prevention practices has resulted in this tree becoming endangered. Efforts are being made to restore longleaf pine ecosystems, with groups such as the Longleaf Alliance actively promoting research, education, and management.
That's actually pretty normal for me. A lot of people call me by my full name.
Pine, which are illegal to cut down, but this one had fallen across a popular scenic trail during a hurricane a few years ago and was removed to clear the trail by the local nature conservancy. And I'd really like to thank Sam McCumber, who reached out to me on Instagram and sent me this beautiful sample of this remarkable tree. And it looks stunning up on the board. If you're interested, please look into and support some of the organizations working to restore longleaf pine ecosystems. And of course, let me know what state we should
I think it just sounds nice together. That's why people like to do it.
Trees so far, and one that's technically not a tree at all. I mean, look at this. There's no grain in this wood. There are no rings. There's bark though. First things first, we're going to stabilize the wood this time, and that's because we're making the great state of South Carolina, which in 1939 designated the sable palmetto, also known as the cabbage palm, sable palm, or simply the palmetto, as its official state tree. And really, there was no other choice. The sable palmetto is South Carolina's single most prominent symbol. The state nickname for one is the Palmetto State, and the tree is featured on the state flag, the state seal, and the state quarter. Much of the state's affinity for the palmetto as a symbol began with the Revolutionary War Battle of Sullivan's Island, which saw South Carolina soldiers hunker behind a fort crafted out of sand and palmetto trunks. This unique combination was able to absorb the impact of British naval cannon fire, allowing the South Carolinian forces to hold the fort and win a pivotal revolutionary victory. Like I mentioned at the top of this video, the palmetto, like all palm trees, are technically monocots, putting them more closely related to grasses or bamboo than most trees, which are dicots.
Welcome,
It's a
Tuna.
tall plant with a thick woody trunk and green leaves. It's more than enough of a tree for a non-scientist like me. It gets its cabbage palm nickname from its edible terminal buds called heart of palm, a common food source for indigenous people within the tree.
How are you?
Other uses include making brushes and brooms from the young leaf stalk fibers and baskets and hats from the leaf blades. Palmetto trunks are often used for wharf pilings, docks, and poles, but the wood is rarely used for much else. You see, palm wood consists of a scattered bundle of tube-like cells that are held together by a soft and spongy lignin, which can make it difficult to work with. But our reward is a really unique and stunning South Carolina. Let's admire it up there on the board, and tell me your favorite thing about palm trees, and let me know what state we should do next. This is going to be a fun one. Today's state has not one, but two state trees, so let's get into it. Also, look at this. Wow. Today we're making the great state of California, which in 1937 designated the California redwood as its official state tree, and in 1953 amended it to recognize both the coast redwood, scientific name Sequoia sempervirens, and the giant sequoia, scientific name Sequoia dendron giganteum. They're two of the largest and tallest species of trees on the entire planet. The coast redwood, typically the taller of the two species,
doing real good.
lives in a narrow band along the coast and can reach heights up to 380 feet. The giant sequoia is found only in a limited area of the western Sierra Nevada mountains and grows up to 310 feet tall, but is the more massive of the two species, with a typical base of 40 feet in diameter compared to the coast redwood's 22-foot diameter. And the widest giant sequoia, General Sherman, has a trunk of over 100 feet in diameter. Honestly, it's overwhelming to try to cover two species as remarkable as these in under a couple minutes, so don't expect this to be the last time we talk about either of them. What I do want to make sure we cover in this is the fact that both species are endangered. As a result of the excessive logging practices of the 18 and 1900s, only 5% remains of the estimated 2 million acres of original coast redwood forests. Now, 82% of the remaining old-growth coast redwoods and 90% of the remaining giant sequoias are protected in national parks and forests, and nowadays the vast majority of redwood lumber comes from farms and second or third growth trees, but there's still a lot of work left to do. If you want to learn more and would like to help, check out organizations like the Save the Redwood League, which are doing work to protect and restore these trees and their ecosystems. I want to thank one of my awesome followers for sending me this stunning piece of coast redwood that was salvaged from a tree that fell during a severe storm some years ago on a farm in Humboldt County. I really feel honored to have been able to use a piece of it for this project. And it looks gorgeous up on the board, fit to honor two truly remarkable species of tree. Let me know in the comments if you've had a chance to see an old growth redwood in person, and of course, let me know what
notes
state
for
we
myself.
should do next. Today we got a state tree that's going to help us finish an entire coastline. That's right, up next is the evergreen state itself, the great state of Washington, and the history behind how they got their state tree is pretty interesting. In 1946, an Oregon newspaper started calling out their northern neighbor for not yet having a state tree and chose the western hemlock for them. Washington newspapers weren't too thrilled about having their tree chosen for them by Oregonians and responded by choosing the western red cedar. But the following year, when the Washington State Legislature was making things official, they went back to the western hemlock, scientific name Tsuga heterophylla, designating it as the official state tree. The largest of the hemlock trees is an evergreen conifer that grows 70 feet tall with a trunk diameter of up to 9 feet. They live primarily in temperate rainforests, and if they're found outside of exceptionally wet regions, they require soil with a high level of organic matter. One of my favorite things about the western hemlock is its charming cones. Look at these little friends, so cute. The western hemlock has many uses and has long been an important tree for the indigenous people within its native range. Its inner bark is edible, and shavings can be eaten immediately or dried and ground into a powder and used to thicken soups or in making bread. The outer bark is used in tanning or as a dye, and western hemlock boughs are used to collect herring eggs, a practice originating from traditional gathering methods used by native Alaskans, which not only makes the eggs easy to gather, but also provides a distinctive taste. The tree's primary use has long been for its wood. Its uniform grain and consistent density makes it easy to work with. It was traditionally used to make spoons, combs, bowls, and more, and today it's commonly used in construction, making for boxes and crates, plywood, and framing materials. And what a gorgeous piece of western hemlock we have here. I want to thank the good people at Urban Made, a boutique furniture company in Seattle, who were kind enough to send this piece my way. It looks perfect up there on the board. Let me know some of your personal favorite types of conifer cones, and of course, let me know what state we should do next. Pretty excited for today's state, because it's one that clearly loves the state tree. Yep, today it's the pine tree state itself, the great state of Maine, which in 1945 designated the eastern white pine, scientific name Pinus strobus, as its official state tree. But that was just making official what was basically already pretty unofficial. You see, all the way back in 1895, when Maine chose its official state floral emblem, they went with the eastern white pine cone and tassel, a choice that rules. The tree is also featured on the state seal, the state flag, the vastly superior 1901 state flag, and the state's license plate. The eastern white pine is the tallest tree in eastern North America, typically growing to about 160 to 180 feet tall. And in pre-colonial old-growth forests, it's reported to have reached heights of over 230 feet. We talked a lot about how the tree was logged in my Michigan video, but one of the things we didn't cover was how the tall and straight white pine became known as a mast pine, and was marked by agents of the British Crown to reserve trees for the British Royal Navy, a practice that became controversial in the colonies and led to an act of rebellion later known as the Pine Tree Riot, a significant lead-up to the Revolutionary War. Named the Tree of Peace by the Haudenosaunee, the eastern white pine has long been an important tree to the indigenous people within its range, both symbolically and
60 seconds left, yeah.
The tree's characteristic bundles of 5 needles became the symbol of the treaty that led to the formation of the League of Five Nations, and the tree remains an important symbol of peace to this day. Check out the Michigan video for some of the tree's many traditional uses, because we're out of time and our eastern white pine Maine is all done. It's looking nice and stately up there on the board. If you're from Maine, go ahead and brag about how cool it is to have a pine cone as your state flower, because I can't get over how great that is. And for the rest of you, let me know which state we should do next. This beautiful piece of wood is for a state that had kind of a tough time getting specific about its state tree. Up next is the Hawkeye State itself, the great state of Iowa, which took a few years to select a state tree. In 1959, the State House of Representatives passed a bill to make the bur oak the state tree, but it failed to make it out of committee in the Senate. So in 1961, they tried again, this time putting forth a bill designating just the oak as Iowa's state tree, hoping it'd stir up less debate.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. I appreciate it.
The tactic worked, and the bill passed, making the oak Iowa's official state tree. Despite this, many Iowans today still hold to the spirit of the original bill, and the bur oak, scientific name Quercus microcarpa, is widely considered the unofficial state tree. So that's the wood I'm using here, and that's the tree we're going to talk about. It's a large and dramatic
so 10
tree
minutes
growing
doesn't
about
seem
90
too
feet
terrible,
tall and exceptionally up to 160
you definitely work your way up to it.
It's one of the most massive oaks with a trunk diameter of up to 10 feet and is a member of the white oak section of the oak genus. Its most notable feature are its acorns, which are the largest in North America.
It's 1, 4, 6,
and I really can't get enough of these characters. I mean, they look like little cartoons wearing hand-knit hats. They're a vitally important food source for all sorts of wildlife, including black bears who are known to tear off branches to get at them. So the trees use an evolutionary strategy known as masting, in which once every few years they produce a ton of seeds that overwhelms the ability of wildlife to eat them all, thus ensuring some will survive. The bur oak shares many of its traditional and modern uses with other white oaks, including their acorns as a food source for humans. The astringent bark can be used to treat wounds, sores, and rashes. The high tannin content makes it useful for tanning. The wood shares many properties with the white oak and is used to make flooring, furniture, barrels, tools, and more. Speaking of the wood, I want to thank woodworker Lori McGinley for sending me this excellent piece of bur oak. Such a pretty piece, all that figure in there, the chef's head is looking perfect up on the board. Tell me your favorite species of acorn and let me know what state we should do next. I'm excited about this one. Sal, you excited too? Today we're headed to Big Sky Country because we're going to make the great state of Montana, which in 1949 designated the ponderosa pine, scientific name Pinus ponderosa, as its official state tree. It's a tall and picturesque pine tree that's synonymous with the high elevations of the American West, with a native range that touches every state from the Pacific coast to the upper Midwest and everything in between. On average, it grows to around 165 feet tall with a trunk diameter of 42 inches, but can reach well over 200 feet tall. One of the tree's most interesting features is its bark. For the first 100 to 150 years of the tree's life, their bark is almost completely black, and as they reach full maturity, it develops its characteristic thick orange scale-like appearance with deep black furrows. And if the charming appearance of this tree's bark wasn't enough on its own, it can also smell strongly of vanilla or butterscotch. It has many uses and has been an important tree for many indigenous tribes throughout its expansive range. Its sweet inner bark is edible, as are the pine seeds. The tree's pitch can be used as a type of chewing gum, as a salve to treat sores and back or hand pain, as a torch fuel or glue, and it's also traditionally used inside flutes to improve the instrument's tone. Oh, and also ponderosa
Ash, thank you for the lurk.
blue dye. I'd like to thank Colin from Rock Ridge Rustic Wood Design for sending me this piece of ponderosa pine. It came from a tree that was killed by pine beetles, as you can see by the holes left behind by beetle larvae and the characteristic blue streaks caused by the fungal infection that follows a beetle infestation. The silver lining is that it gave us a really great
Guys, do check out Crossing After Dark. Tuna and Abarash, these are all very good friends of mine and streamers.
Tell me the tree you think
Definitely
smells
worth
the
following
best,
and worth
let me know
watching.
what state we should do next.
I'm eating some foods, but I thought I stopped by and listen. Thank you. Coach, thank you for the hydrate.
It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Yep, up next is the great state of Rhode Island, which actually unofficially selected this tree in the 1890s via a vote by local school children, but it wasn't until 1964 that the state legislature made it official by adopting the red maple, scientific name Acer rubrum, as Rhode Island's state tree. An abundant, adaptable, and widespread tree, the red maple's native range covers just about the entire eastern United States and large portions of southeast Canada. It typically reaches heights of around 100 feet, growing exceptionally up to 135 feet, with a trunk diameter ranging from 18 to 35 inches and up to 60 inches in open growing conditions. The red maple gets its name from the many prominent red features that it displays throughout the year. The tree's leaves are often red as they first grow in the spring. Its uniquely interesting blossoms are also a striking bright red color, as are its characteristic samaras. And of course, it typically has bright red foliage come autumn, but that's a feature often shared by plenty of other maple trees.
Oh yeah, here we go.
The sugar maple, a tree we've already covered twice in this series so far. The red maple can produce maple syrup, but it sprouts its buds quite early in the season, and once that happens, it imparts an undesirable flavor to the sap, giving the tree a much shorter harvesting season than the more commonly tapped sugar maple. Primary traditional uses include using a decoction of the bark as an eye wash and to treat cramps and dysentery. The inner bark is also edible, as are the samara seeds. Red maple wood is considered a soft maple species. It's still a pretty hard wood, typically on par with cherry or walnut. It's just soft when compared to hard maple, which generally refers to wood from the sugar maple and is around twice as hard. Either way, it's left us with quite the charming little red maple Rhode Island up on our board. Tell me your favorite unique and interesting tree blossom, and let me know what state we should do next. You know what time it is. State tree time. It's kind of hard. Today we're making the great state of Illinois, which in 1908 adopted the native oak as its state tree, not specifying a particular species. But in 1973, the state decided to get specific and put it up to a vote among nearly 1 million school children who selected the white oak, scientific name Quercus alba, making it Illinois' official state tree. Slow growing and striking a grand profile, it typically reaches heights of about 100 feet when full grown, with a lifespan often surpassing well over 300 years. With a native range spanning almost the entire eastern United States, the white oak has long been one of the most revered trees on the continent. Indigenous people have many traditional uses for the tree. The acorns are edible and are typically far more palatable than those from the red oak. The natural astringents in the bark make it helpful for treating wounds and stemming bleeding. It's also used in traditional tanning practices and has many other uses, but where it really shines is its wood. In fact, the great Illinois native himself, Nick Offerman, has called the American white oak the most noble of woods, and it's hard to argue with him. It's strong and hard, yet flexible and beautiful. It has a closed cellular structure that makes it water and rot resistant. It's used to make all sorts of stuff: fine furniture, ships, tools, barrels in which you age wine and allow the wood to impart strong flavors. And bourbon isn't considered bourbon unless it's aged in charred white oak barrels. This piece we have here is what's called quarter sawn white oak, and that's why we see those really cool streaks, which are called reflex. And it looks exceptionally classy up on the board. I especially love how it completes our nice little negative space Lake Michigan. Tell me what you think is the most noble of woods, and let me know what state we should do next. I love it when a state goes hard for its the Magnolia State itself, the great state of Mississippi. Which
Yes,
is
Josh, the
designated
way that I
Magnolia as its official
add
state tree in
reverb is
1953,
actually the
not
audio
specifying a
is
specific
being
species,
routed
but
from the
most
computer
recognize the
into
southern
this
Magnolia,
device.
scientific name Magnolia
Right here,
grandiflora.
actually. It's in
a
this
prominent
track.
symbol throughout the South and in Mississippi in particular. In addition to being the state tree,
Right here.
it's the state flower
And so
nickname, and
this
it's also
device
on
is
state
adding the
quarter
reverb
and the
and
state
doing
flag.
all of the
A
sound to
truly
it.
striking evergreen tree. It
Yeah, the
typically
dry
grows
signal
to be about
comes out of my
90 feet
computer
tall
into
with
this
a
device,
great trunk.
which
The
this
southern
goes into my
magnolia's
mixer,
broad,
which goes
shiny
back
leaves
into
are
my
striking
computer.
in their own right, but of course its most captivating feature are its fragrant white
Oh, thank you.
flowers,
Thank
which
you. It's,
emerge on mature trees in the late spring.
the best way I know
nearly
how.
12 inches
Well,
in diameter,
that way
and are
the
then
effects
followed
are
by a
being
red fruit
controlled
from
by
which
the
tree
same
releases
parameters
its
for the
seed.
rest of the track.
Indigenous tribes within the Magnolia's range have many traditional uses for the tree, with a couple interesting ones coming from the bark, which serves as a steroid and as an anti-anxiety treatment. In fact, a pair of active ingredients have been isolated from the plant, honokiol and magnolol, the former of which, according to Yale, has been shown to be up to 5 times stronger than Valium in its anti-anxiety effects. Southern magnolia wood is used to make all sorts of stuff, like furniture, boxes, it's a general utility wood, and some
But that's
of
what
the
this
showier
plug
wood
is.
is often used to make veneer. But the southern magnolia's primary use today is as an ornamental tree. Although endemic to the Gulf and South Atlantic coastal plain, the tree is so well liked that it's been cultivated in warm climates around the globe. I'm really digging how this piece turned out. We've got these interesting purple and green streaks at the top, and the growth rings also have a nice lavender color tint to them. I want to make sure to thank a guy by the name of Sean Murray, who was kind enough to reach out and send this piece of wood to me. Tell me your favorite flowering tree and let me know what state we should do next. Got an interesting state tree for you guys today, because this one was so controversial that it sparked an international maple syrup tasting contest. Today we're making the great state of New York, which in 1889 conducted a poll among school children in which the sugar maple was selected state tree, but it was never made official. So in 1956, New York Governor Averell Harriman asked the state assembly to pass a bill to make it official. Now when Vermont's governor, Joseph Johnson, heard about this, he sent a pretty fiery telegram to Governor Harriman saying, "The sugar maple has been Vermont's state tree since 1949, and you can't fool the public into believing that the Empire State can compete with Vermont's maple products. But we'll share our tree with you if you're willing to prove in competition that New York's maple products taste even 1/2 as good as ours." New York's governor accepted the challenge, inviting Vermont to a taste test at the New York State Maple Sugar
Let's go.
Festival.
Remember the Phoenix? Have you spoken with him in a while? I was hit him up the other day, and I'm planning on becoming one of his students. Oh, no way!
By the time the fair rolled around, a panel
Yeah, I do
of
remember
food
Phoenix,
editors
of course.
lined up
That's
to judge
awesome. I'm
maple
glad to hear
products
that.
from New York, Vermont, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Ohio, Maine, Michigan.
He's very
Minnesota,
smart. He knows a
and
lot about
Quebec,
music. This
whose
is true.
largest maple syrup producer had publicly scoffed at the competition, saying most American maple syrup was simply watered down Canadian influence anyway. The judges sampled maple-infused recipes, including maple barbecued ribs, maple corn muffins, scalloped sweet potatoes with pineapples and syrup, French dressing with maple syrup and maple charlotte russe, and maple fluff. In the end, the judges called the competition a tie, giving the top spot to Vermont and Michigan, with New York coming in at a very close third. Governor Harriman graciously conceded defeat and awarded a silver cup to both winners.
I'm excited.
Days
His mix is
later,
so cool. I need to learn.
1956,
Somehow I'd rather learn from a
proved that
human
New York's
being.
maple
I mean,
products were at
that's
least
valid. No,
half
I
as good
agree.
as
I agree.
Vermont's. He went on to sign the tree bill, which had been passed by the legislature.
It's easier to learn that way when someone can just explain it to you. I mean, that's like one of the few ways to make money in music, right? A lot of people who actually make money doing music, they teach. They don't necessarily make money from people listening to their music or anything like
It sure
that.
does look great up on our board. Tell me some of your favorite maple recipes and let me know what state we should do next. Fun fact, this wood right here is going to be the hardest on our entire map. It's pretty hard. It's time to make the great state of Georgia, which in 1937
Huge bummer for me, 'cause I'm not good at
designated
teaching
the southern live oak, scientific name Quercus virginiana, as its official state tree. An iconic tree in every sense of the word, the southern live oak is practically synonymous with the deep south. They can range in size from a shrub all the way up to massive spreading trees with majestic canopies and sweeping lower limbs that graze the ground before rising back up again. Live oaks retain their leaves nearly year-round, but aren't true evergreens, as they often drop their leaves immediately before new ones emerge in the spring. The branches of the southern live oak frequently support other plant species like ball moss, resurrection fern, and Spanish moss, all of which add to the charm and mystique of this stunning tree. It's obviously an aesthetic wonder, but it has many practical uses as well. Traditional indigenous uses include extracting an oil from the acorns to be used in cooking. They can also be roasted or processed into flour. Live oak
My
seedlings
music
have
teacher right now who
tuber-like
gives me the
roots that can be
lessons, when
fried
I came
and
for her, she
eaten.
said she
And
might
like
be
with
able to
all
offer
oak
a full-time
trees, the bark
teaching.
can be a source for
Oh, hey.
tannins and can be used in traditional
That's what's up.
tanning, as a dye, and as and astringent to treat wounds and sores. Live oak wood is
Does she have like an actual school?
It was widely used to build framework timbers of ships, and the frame of the USS Constitution was constructed from southern live oak wood harvested from St. Simon's Island in Georgia. And it was the strength and density of that wood that helped the ship withstand cannon fire, giving it its nickname Old Ironsides. I'd like to thank Bill, a fellow woodworker here on TikTok, for sending me this piece of southern live oak. It was a pleasure to work with and looks great on the board. Tell me your favorite thing about the southern live oak and let me know what state we should do next. Resinous. Today we're making the great state of Idaho, which in 1935 designated the western white pine, scientific name Pinus monticola, as its official state tree. Sometimes called the Idaho pine, the western white pine is a large tree that regularly grows from up to 100 to 160 feet tall and exceptionally up to over 200 feet. As a member of the white pine group, its leaves or needles grow in bundles of 5, and its cones are long and slender and noticeabably larger than its close relative, the eastern white pine.
Yeah, she does. She inherited it from her father. Oh, nice.
Its many traditional uses among
Guitar Guild, that's a cool name.
Its range include chewing its pitch as a gum and to treat coughs. You can also process the pitch to make glue for fastening arrowheads.
That's what's up, man. I'm glad to hear that. That would be cool. You should totally do it.
And used to treat stomach
But in order to teach that, you definitely need to have a clear understanding of it, right? And like, you'll need to develop
the western white pine
a curriculum
is also highly
almost.
prized for its lumber. Its wood is soft, finely textured, and easily worked. It's used in all sorts of construction purposes, from making doors and furniture to exterior and interior siding and molding. Unfortunately, the western white pine is struggling as a species. Its population was drastically impacted by the indiscriminate logging practices of the 19th and 20th centuries. To make matters worse, they've also been hit hard by white pine blister rust, a fungus introduced from Europe in 1909, which has killed about 90% of western white pines west of the Cascades. But some individual western white pines have proven to be genetically resistant to blister rust, and the
We'll have to go to
Forest Service has had
college.
success in
Ah,
breeding
I see.
those trees and has begun to use them to reforest hard-hit areas. I want to thank Ryan
No worries.
Edwards for sending me this
Hey,
great
Kira,
piece of
welcome in.
western
Good to see
white
you.
pine from Idaho. It's a really nice fit up there for a really nice trade. Let me know
Guys,
if
do
you're
check
team
out
western
Kira,
white pine
friend
or
of the
team
channel.
eastern white pine.
Friend I've
Of
had at
course, tell me what
TwitchCon.
state we should do
No worries,
next.
thanks,
We got
Coach.
a really hard piece of wood today. In fact, this is basically tied for the hardest on the
Kira,
entire
it sounds
map.
good
It's
because
also
this
good
is
to
like
know
what I
about
like to do.
the side of
This
it.
is one of my
Today is the
favorite
great
ways to make
Commonwealth of
music.
Virginia, which in 1956 designated the flowering dogwood, scientific name Cornus florida, as its official tree. Legislators selected it after having already designated the dogwood flower as Virginia's floral symbol in 1918, citing the tree's status as one of Thomas Jefferson's favorites. A small and extremely showy tree, it typically grows up to about 33 feet high with a trunk diameter of up to 12 inches and has a vast native range spanning much of the eastern United States. The tree is most notable for its attention-grabbing flowers, which consist of 4 large modified leaves called bracts, which surround a cluster of about 20 tiny flowers. They appear in March to April in the south and June in the north. The flowering dogwood fruit consists of a cluster of shiny, inedible crimson drupes, which ripen in late summer to early fall, just before the tree's leaves turn a deep red brown. Traditional indigenous uses include using the bark and roots to treat malaria. The tree's roots can be used to make red inks and dyes. Dogwood bark was also once used to treat dogs with mange, which is one of the
Oh, sure, Josh. I'd love to
theories
listen
on
to
how
it.
the tree got its name. The tree's wood is really dense and
I'll take
hard.
a
It's used
note.
to make things like mallets and tool handles, golf club heads, jewelry boxes, and other specialty items. But the flowering dogwood's primary use is as an ornamental, in large part, of course, thanks to its flowers. But let's not discount the charm of its bark. Those little square scales. I just think it's neat. I'd like to thank Gillian, a follower who sent this beautiful piece of flowering dogwood my way. I'm really digging this piece. Such unique color and character in there. It looks excellent up on the board. Let me hear your favorite flowering tree and tell me what state we should do next. Can you believe we're 2/3 of the way through the map now? Crazy. Today we're making the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which in 1931 designated the eastern hemlock.
Pennsylvania's a
scientific
Commonwealth,
name
what?
Zoea canadensis, as its official state tree. That designation came a few decades after the father of Pennsylvania forestry, Dr. Joseph T. Rothbach, said, "If Pennsylvania were to select one tree as characteristic of our state, nothing would be better than the hemlock." A stately evergreen tree, the eastern hemlock is slightly
Beautiful.
smaller than its close relative, the western hemlock, but it's by no means diminutive. They typically grow to heights of about 100 feet with a trunk diameter of 5 feet. They're also long-lived, with the oldest recorded specimen found right in Pennsylvania being at least 554 years old. Traditional indigenous uses of the tree include making a tea rich in vitamin C that helped combat colds, coughs, and scurvy. Steam from said tea could also be used to treat rheumatism and arthritis. The inner bark is also edible and can be eaten raw or boiled or used to make flour. Now, if you're saying, wait, I thought hemlocks were poisonous, That's because hemlock trees got their name from their needles smelling kind of like the poisonous hemlock herb, but the plants aren't at all related. Today,
Of course, I'm very familiar with Aretha Franklin. She's
there
great.
are over 300 cultivars ranging from small shrubs and hedges to full-grown trees. Sadly, eastern hemlock forests are currently threatened by the hemlock woolly adelgid, a tiny bug introduced to the eastern United States in the 1920s. By today, the adelgid has spread throughout the eastern United States, with the pest being particularly damaging on stands in the southern portion of the tree's range. Foresters have been testing releasing a species of beetle from the woolly adelgid's native range that feeds solely on the pest, and this method of control has seen some positive results so far. I'd like to thank Andrew Mitchell and Ryan Shull, who both sent me a piece of eastern hemlock. The Keystone State looks great up on the board. Tell me your favorite thing about the hemlock, and let me know what state we should do next. Today's state tree is kind of a controversial one. Up next, the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, where there's a bit of a tangled history when it comes to their state tree. In 1956, the Kentucky General Assembly selected the tulip tree, also known as the tulip poplar, yellow poplar, or by its scientific name, Liriodendron tulipiferia. But in 1973, someone discovered that the legislation had never been properly recorded in Kentucky's statutes, meaning that the Commonwealth was officially without an official tree. A popular columnist for the Louisville Courier
Interesting
Journal
that-
took this
interesting that she's your favorite, but she's a great
opportunity to
artist.
replace the
I mean,
tulip
iconic,
tree
really.
with the Kentucky coffee tree, scientific name Gymnocladus dioicus. The movement quickly gained steam, with proponents citing the tree's unique seed pods that can be roasted and ground as a coffee substitute, and its attractive wood, which is frequently called Kentucky mahogany. The debate between coffee tree and tulip tree continued for 3 years until March 8, 1976, when the legislature passed a bill officially designating the Kentucky coffee tree as the new official state tree. Tulip tree proponents didn't take this sitting down, and in 1994 they introduced a bill to replace the coffee tree, arguing that most of the literature and references to Kentucky state tree still cited the tulip tree anyway. Coffee tree fans pointed out that the tulip poplar is Indiana's and Tennessee's state tree, and tulip tree supporters cited their tree's historical use in making dugout canoes and building pioneer-era cabins. An amendment to make both trees official failed, and the initial bill passed on February 25th, 1994, returning the tulip tree to its
I love
status
the
as
drama,
Kentucky's
the
official
tree
state
drama.
tree. Check out my Indiana and Tennessee videos if you want to learn more about the tulip tree, which is a pretty great tree, and this tulip poplar Kentucky looks great up on the board, but I can't help but wonder how some coffee tree wood might have looked. Tell me, especially if you're from Kentucky, are you team tulip tree or team coffee tree? And of course, everyone let me know what state we should do next. Finally got my hands on some of the wood that's going to help us start to fill in the middle of the country. All this, we're filming it in. Up next is the great state of Kansas, which in 1937 designated the cottonwood as its official state tree. Now, the legislation didn't specify a specific species of cottonwood, but it's the eastern cottonwood, scientific name Populus deltoides, and its subspecies the plains cottonwood, Populus deltoides monolifera, that call the sunflower state home. The Kansas state legislature called the tree the pioneer of the prairie, stating that the successful growth of a cottonwood grove was what determined whether a homesteader would stick it out on their claim. It's a large, fast-growing tree, native to huge swaths of the U.S. east of the Rocky Mountains. Usually found near bodies of water, they typically grow to be about 60 to 200 feet tall, with a massive, deeply furrowed trunk, often reaching 9 feet in diameter. Its flowers, which appear in the form of long
This
catkins,
progression is
come
very
on
different.
in early spring, with the males a reddish-purple color and the females green. Seed capsules appear in early summer, which split open to release numerous tiny seeds attached to cotton-like strands, which give the tree its name. And contrary to popular belief, it's the aforementioned catkins and their pollen that trigger seasonal allergies, not these cottony seeds. The eastern cottonwood has a host of traditional indigenous uses. Its fragrant buds can be used to make an antiseptic salve that's great for your skin. The bark contains salicin and thus has some pain-killing properties, and the bark and leaves are both used to treat wounds. And the buds can also be used to make red, yellow, and purple dye. Cottonwood wood is brittle and soft and generally regarded as low value. It's primarily used to make boxes and crates, plywood, and paper. It's also famous for having a sour odor when green, but that goes away when the wood dries out. After months without finding
It's a really
any
pretty
eastern
progression,
cottonwood, I
isn't
had
it?
several people all send me some at the same time, so big thanks to Griffin Sanders and the crew at Nestor Outdoors, Jeannie Tholen, and
This
Brian.
progression is, hold on. I actually love this progression so much, we're going to pause and talk about it. So this progression is in a lot of music, but it also, it's an F major 7. With a G with an E minor in the bass. With a A minor. And then a G with a B in the bass. That's it. It's beautiful. Get back to this beat making, but yeah, tasty. Tasty.
And the folks at Winter High School. Kansas is looking great up on the board. I really dig the streaks with Spalding and nice character in this piece. Tell me your favorite thing about the cottonwood tree and let me know what state we should do next. It's another small state day. Today
I'm just waiting for people to tell me. I like, oh, it sounds like this song. It sounds like this song. It's like, of course, yeah, it does.
American elm, scientific
You're right.
Ulmus americana, as its official state tree. A large, magnificent American tree. Its native range covers basically the entire country east of the Rockies, as well as southeastern Canada. According to legislation, the elm was selected to commemorate the fact that George Washington took command of the Continental Army beneath an American elm tree on Cambridge Common in 1775. That tree was later named the Washington elm and stood as a proud symbol in Cambridge for well over a century. By the early 1900s, it had become quite fragile and diseased in its advanced age, and in 1923, the entire tree fell during a routine pruning. A cross-section was sent to George Washington's home in Mount Vernon, and the main trunk was divided into large pieces, each of which was sent to the governors of the 48 states at the time. Smaller items were also crafted from the branches of the tree, with gavels being especially popular. Root shoots from the Washington elm were also sent to locations throughout the country, and many of them and their descendants still thrive today. The Cambridge Historical Commission has stated that the story of Washington taking command under the elm is almost certainly a myth, but the tree remains a symbol all the same. Beyond its status as an icon of Massachusetts history, the American elm is a remarkable tree. Prized for its attractive shape and shade-providing canopies, it once dominated urban and suburban landscapes throughout the country. Unfortunately, far too few of these trees remain, as Dutch elm disease.
How do you make that bass patch? Is that a saw wave of filter? It is it's a saw wave.
We're about out of time, but the elm is the state tree for another state, so we'll be able to dive more into this amazing tree.
It's just part of this device. Is one of the synth engines. It's called saw.
For sending me some American elm wood. It made for a pretty great Massachusetts.
It's just filtered in the middle.
Home up on the board. Tell me if you've ever seen a piece of the Washington elm or met one of its descendants, and let me know what state we should do next. I honestly think if we went back and counted every single request on every single state tree video so far, today's state would be the most requested one we haven't done yet. Up next is the land of 10,000 lakes, the great state of Minnesota, which in 1953 designated the red pine, scientific name Pinus resinosa, as its official state tree. A regal conifer native to the Great Lakes region through the northeastern U.S. and southeastern Canada, the red pine typically grows to heights of 120 feet with a straight trunk of 5 feet in diameter. The tree's long needles grow in bundles of 2 and are notable for breaking cleanly when bent, a popular way to potentially identify the species. The red pine
This is
gets
true.
its name from the reddish undertones of its thick
Now I use it a lot for
bark.
basses. I actually like it quite a bit.
It's also sometimes confusingly called the Norway pine, even though it's strictly a North American native. One popular theory is the origin of the nickname is that English explorers mistook the tree for the Norway spruce, while another cites the region's many Scandinavian immigrants as the source of the name. The tree has many traditional indigenous uses. It can be a good source of resin, which when boiled twice and combined with tallow makes for a waterproof pitch used to seal canoes, roofs, and more. The tree has similar medicinal uses to other pines, but the eastern white pine is far more prevalent and therefore more often the tree of choice. A pretty interesting thing about the red pine is that it has very little genetic diversity or variation and doesn't hybridize well, if at all. According to researchers, this suggests the species has been through a near extinction in its recent evolutionary history. The red pine is definitely an outstanding tree, and wow, what a real stunning piece of wood we have to honor it. I'd like to thank Lori McGinley, a fellow woodworker here on TikTok, for sending this piece my way. It looks exceptional up on the board. Our chef finally has their hat. Tell me your favorite thing about the red pine and let me know what state we should do next. Today's state didn't feel like being very specific with their state tree. Up next is the great
Because of its
state of
harmonics make the bass
Arkansas,
head. It's true.
which in 1939 designated the pine
This is
as
very
its official
true.
state tree. No species was singled out in the bill, but there are 2 types of pine that are far and away the most commonly found in Arkansas. The short-leaf pine, scientific name Pinus echinata, has the largest range of the southern pines, but it reaches its ecological maxima around western Arkansas and the Ouachita Mountains. It has a highly variable shape and size, reaching heights of 65 to 100 feet with a trunk diameter of 1 to 3 feet, and its 2 to 4 inch needles grow in bundles of 2 and 3 mixed together. It occupies a variety of habitats from rocky uplands to floodplains, and with frequent fire, it creates a savanna with a really diverse understory and makes for a prime habitat for the red-cocked woodpecker. The loblolly pine, scientific name Pinus tata, is a dominant pine throughout the southeastern United States, and according to a survey by the U.S. Forest Service, is the second most common species of tree in the United States after red maple. It usually reaches heights of 100 to 115 feet with a trunk diameter of 1 to 5 feet, and its 4 to 8 inch needles are found in bundles of 3. It's often found in lowlands and swampy areas, which is where it gets its fun-to-say name. Lob refers to thick bubbling porridge, and lolly is an old British dialect word for broth or soup, making loblolly a word used to mean mud hole or mire. An interesting fact about the loblolly, it was the first species of pine to have its complete genome sequenced and was the largest genome of any organism, 7 times larger than that of a human, until 2018 when the axolotl's genome was sequenced. Traditional indigenous uses for these species is similar to many other species of pine. Their needles are rich in vitamin C.
So like using science stuff from my bases, I like destroying them with a vital stock destruction effect, hard clipping. It sounds kind of like a semi-ish wave band, but when you play chords, it just sounds really broken. I mean, that sounds cool. I use triangles a lot for bases as well.
And Aria Blackman for sending me some loblolly pine to get our Arkansas up on the board. Now our chef is finally wearing pants. Tell me your favorite tree name to say out loud, and let me know what state we should do next. Pretty exciting day, because not only is this one of the most highly anticipated states left on the map, but also this wood does something really cool that I promise you're going to want to stick around to see. Today we're making the great state of Oklahoma, which in 1937 designated the eastern redbud, scientific name Cercis canadensis, as its official state tree. But the choice wasn't without some controversy. Just as the governor was about to sign the bill making
triangles for bases,
he received a telegram from the president of the National Women's Club protesting the choice, claiming that the eastern redbud was the same as the European redbud, which is often called the Judas tree, due to the myth stating that Judas Iscariot hanged himself from that tree, turning its white flowers red. The debate was settled after a prominent Israeli-born Oklahoman named John Iskin was able to convince the public that the 2 trees, while related, are indeed separate species, which is fortunate for all of us because this is a really great state tree. It's a large shrub or small tree native to much of the eastern United States and parts of northern Mexico, typically growing to 20 to 30 feet tall with a short twisted trunk and wide spreading branches. It's most famed for its showy magenta flowers that appear in clusters from spring to early summer that are pollinated by long-tongued bees such as blueberry bees and carpenter bees, as shorter-tongued bees can't reach the nectaries. The redbud has many traditional indigenous uses. The bark, when boiled, makes for treatment for whooping cough. The roots and inner bark treat fevers and congestion. The flowers are edible. They have a mild, sweet flavor and can be sprinkled into a salad, used as a garnish, baked into cookies and cakes, made into jelly, or just eaten as is. The tree's seed pods are also edible, making the redbud a really great snacking tree. Eastern redbud wood is primarily used by hobbyists to make boxes, carvings, and small specialty items, but that really cool thing about it that I promised you? It's one of a few species that fluoresces under blacklight. I want to thank Aaron Wheeler, Benjamin Welch, Neil Golden, and William Shepard all for sending me some redbud wood. And a big thanks for all my Patreon supporters for voting for Oklahoma to be the next state up on our board. It really does look great up there. Tell me your favorite edible trees, and let me know what state you hope to see next. I think we might have a tough time making today's state, but I think we might be able to pull it off. I don't know. Up next, it's the great state of Wyoming, which in 1947 designated the cottonwood as its official state
D, welcome
tree.
in. How are you?
The original bill cited the common name cottonwood, but also cited the scientific name Populus balsamifera, which is actually the balsam
Guys, do check out my good friend
poplar and not the
DJD.
cottonwood. So it was unclear
Fantastic
as to
streamer.
which tree was actually Wyoming state tree. So in 1961, a pair of
One of
state senators
the
introduced
most
a corrective
popular
legislation
Stellaris
keeping
streamers
the
on
common name
Twitch,
listed as the
actually.
Cottonwood, but updating the
Wyoming
scientific
doesn't
name to
exist.
Populus sargenti, making the plains cottonwood the
I don't know if
definitive
people knew
state
that.
tree.
DJD is
The
one
plains
of the
cottonwood's more
biggest
commonly used scientific name is Populus deltoides
Stellaris
mellifera,
streamers out
as
there.
It's considered a subspecies of the eastern cottonwood, which we recently covered on our
We're working
Kansas
on getting
video.
that Paradox
There's not much
sponsorship.
that separates these two species. The plains variety has slightly smaller and more coarsely toothed leaves, and the
I am
tree
very proud.
thrives in
I'm
more
very proud.
adverse conditions than its eastern counterpart.
All you have to
but
do to be the
primary
biggest
features are
streamer of a
more or
game
less
on Twitch is
identical.
pick a game that
However,
nobody
this
plays.
variety is particularly iconic as a symbol of life and refuge.
And that's not
on
even true
prairie,
because people
growing
play
large,
Stellaris.
tall, and
DJD is
open
just
fields.
above 'em.
And as the Wyoming legislature put it,
I have not
given
seen the
its
new Paradox
bountiful
Marvel
comfort and
game.
beauty
What?
to the residents of the state, and its shelter and shade to the livestock of the state since time immemorial. Its traditional and modern uses are identical to that of the eastern cottonwood, so go check out the Kansas video if you'd like to learn more about those. But we're already done with our Cottonwood, Wyoming. I really like the way this piece turned out. There's some light spalting and some really subtle figure in there. A big thanks to my Patreon supporters who selected this state in an extremely close vote. Wyoming's looking right at home up on the board. Let me know if you're more of a Plains Cottonwood or an Eastern Cottonwood fan.
It's called Midnight Suns. It's like
Today's
turn-based
Arbor Day,
chess
so
or
it's
X.
fitting to
That
make
sounds
the state
really
when the holiday
cool.
began. That's right, we're making the great state of Nebraska, which in 1937 designated the American elm as its official state tree.
Let's look this up.
However, in 1972, in light of Dutch elm disease having killed much of the American elm population of the state, the legislature changed the state tree to the Eastern Cottonwood, independent subspecies of the plains.
Look at that, it's on Xbox.
Wyoming state tree. So check out both of those episodes if you'd like to
I'll have
learn
to
more
check it
about
out.
cottonwoods. Because today is the 105th anniversary of Arbor Day, a holiday all about planting trees, and it got its start right in Nebraska. The first American Arbor Day was originated by J. Sterling Morton, who as the Secretary of Nebraska
I like that style of
decided to
game
use
too. I've
his
not
office
played
to spread
XCOM
personal passion
specifically,
for
but I
trees
played like a lot of
by
Fire
proposing
Emblem
tree planting holiday during a
and
meeting
Final
with the State
Fantasy
Board of
Tactics.
Agriculture. The
Ah!
celebration took place on April 10th, 1872,
What happened?
with individuals and organizations competing for prizes for planting the most trees. And at the end of the day, Nebraskans had planted over 1 million of them across the state. Word spread, and each year, new states would pass legislation to observe the holiday. And today, Arbor Day is celebrated in all 50 states, with the holiday now typically falling on the last Friday in April.
Not much of a Marvel
Some
game.
state Arbor Days
No.
are at
Oh,
other
dude, Final
times
Fantasy,
to coincide
Final Fantasy
with tree
Tactics
planting
is
was
so
in that
good.
region. The Arbor Day Foundation,
so
a
good.
nonprofit organization dedicated to planting trees, was founded in Nebraska in 1972 on the 100th anniversary of the holiday, and is an excellent resource if you're looking for guides or information about which trees you'd like to plant this Arbor Day or any other day. Our Cottonwood, Nebraska is all done, and I really dig how this piece turned out. It's a fitting tribute to the home of Arbor Day. Let me know about the trees you planted this Arbor Day, and tell me what state you want to see next. Look at all this spalting. This should be a fun one. Up next is the great state of West
Oh, that's
Virginia,
cool.
which in 1949
Oh, you're not much of a
designated
Marvel
the sugar
dude,
maple
I
site
see.
of the name Acer saccharum as its
I like
official state
Marvel
tree.
quite a
It was
bit. I feel
chosen
like
by
I've gotten a
fellow
little bit of Marvel
students and
burnout,
civic organizations and
you
is
know,
one of 4 states
with how
to
much stuff they
select
like. I still haven't watched
It's
She-Hulk,
a larger deciduous tree, normally
but I
reaching
do like
heights of
Marvel.
80 to 120 feet, and exceptionally up to 150 feet, and it's also long-lived, typically living for 200 years and up to 300 to 400. It requires cold winters and long dormancy periods to germinate, so it's mostly found north of the 42nd parallel, and collection of sap in the trees in the southern portion of its range isn't really possible. Sugar maples are deeper rooted than most maples and engage in what's called hydraulic lift, in which they draw water from lower soil layers and exude that water into upper, drier soil layers, benefiting not only the tree itself, but also many other plants
I
growing
prefer
around
DC
it.
because I grew up with it
Sadly,
more.
human
I see.
influences have contributed to the decline
I mean, I
of
like
sugar
DC
maple
a
in
lot
many
too, but
regions.
I
It's
think
most
Marvel's
often
done better with
found
their
in
movies
shore
than DC's
forests,
done.
so as those forests
Though the
have been cut
animated DC
down,
movies
sugar
are great.
maple has been rapidly replaced by more opportunistic species like the red maple. The Norway maple, a popular imported species, has also displaced the sugar maple as it's more tolerant of urbanized areas and produces a much larger crop of seeds, allowing it to outcompete its native cousin. The sugar maple's primary traditional use is in making maple sugar and maple syrup, a practice invented by indigenous people within its range. It's also prized for its attractive and extremely hard wood, which is used to make all sorts of stuff. And I'd love to talk more about maple syrup, maple sugar, and maple wood, but you're gonna have to check out my Wisconsin, Vermont, and or New York videos for that info, because our West Virginia is done. I'm really enjoying how this one turned out with that spalting.
For
and really
DC's
nice
graphic
dark
novels,
lines.
especially Vertigo.
Getting this one to fit was every bit as challenging as you'd imagine.
I've not
but
read,
it looks great up on the board.
Watchmen.
Let me know your
I've not
favorite
read a
pieces
ton of
maple tree and
comics.
Tell me what state you want to see next. The wood from our next state tree has no growth rings, so it's time to reignite that old debate: tree or not a tree. Because today we're making the great state of Florida, which in 1953 designated the sable palm, also known as the palmetto, cabbage palm, swamp cabbage, or by its scientific name, sable palmetto, as its official state tree. What I'm doing here is stabilizing the wood by placing it in a vacuum chamber and impregnating the piece with a special fluid that stays liquid until baked at over 200 degrees, leaving us with a much harder and easier to work with piece of wood. Because like I said at the top of this video, palms don't really grow like other trees. They're monocots, meaning when they germinate, they have only one embryonic leaf or cotyledon. Other monocots include grasses, grains, plants like onions and garlic, lilies and daffodils, and even bamboo. Most trees, meanwhile, are dicots, meaning they have 2 cotyledons. So biologically speaking, a palm is a closer relative to, say, the turf you might have in your front yard than a maple tree. But that doesn't mean that all dicots are trees. Speaking of front yards, dandelions are dicots, so are sunflowers and daisies. So it all comes down to how you want to define a tree. If your definition is a tall plant with a thick woody trunk and a crown of leafy growths, then yeah, a palm's a tree. But if your definition is a dicot whose leaves have net-like veins and whose trunks consist of vascular bundles arranged in rings, then a palm is definitely not a tree. Anyway, the sable palmetto grows up to 65 feet tall and is the northernmost of the native North American palms, with a range covering much of Florida into Georgia, the Carolinas, as well as Cuba, Turks and Caicos, and the Bahamas. It's a hardy species of palm, relatively cold tolerant and extremely salt tolerant, and has thus been widely cultivated across the warmer regions of the United States. Again, another big separator between palms and other trees is the lack of growth rings, as a palm trunk is technically a stem and consists of vascular bundles of fibers held together by a spongy lignin. As you can imagine, this makes determining the age of a palm rather difficult. Your best bet set is to know which species you're looking at, how long they typically live, and determine a rough estimate. The sable palmetto is a fascinating species, so go watch South Carolina's video if you'd like to learn more about its traditional uses, like the edible terminal buds that give it its cabbage palm nickname. This is the only piece on our map that's using a transverse cut of the wood so that we can see the end grain, and I did that to contrast with South Carolina's side grain view, and I really love how it turned out. Tell me, are you team palms?
I would recommend My Chemical Romance. Lee Singer finds a lot of inspiration for his music too. Oh, interesting.
I got some exciting news for
I mean,
you all.
I just like to read books
hole in our map. Because up next,
more than
we've got
graphic
the great
novels.
state of North
Like, I feel like graphic
Dakota,
novels
which
just
in
feel too short.
1947 designated the American elm, scientific name Ulmus americana, as its official state tree. Prized for its rapid growth, the ability to thrive in rugged conditions, and the way its graceful umbrella-shaped canopy could form living archways over streets, the American elm was once one of North America's premier landscaping trees. This popularity led to extreme overplanting of the species, which ultimately produced an unhealthy monoculture of elms, as in the wild they rarely grow in pure stands. Which
There's still
right
7 more states.
A disease caused by a fungus and spread by elm bark beetles, it resulted from people bringing trees and wood from Asia, where their native elms had built a natural resistance to the fungus over millennia, to Europe, where their trees had no resistance. It made its way to New York.
I just considered refunding Alteric's first redemption. It's welcome in, Zoe. How are you?
War demand superseded them in the 1940s, and by 1989, it had spread and killed over 75%.
I love fantasy books, fantasy and sci-fi.
Preventative measures.
I read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, Brandon Sanderson, all kinds of classic fantasy stuff as well, though I haven't read any of the Salvatore books. I read a lot of I used to read a lot of theology books. I haven't in like the last year.
So there is some hope on the horizon. Traditional uses for the American elm primarily include decoctions made from its inner bark.
Novels, I guess, is a better way of putting it. I like to read a lot of novels.
American elm wood is moderately heavy, hard, and stiff. And
I'm good. How are you? I am doing good. Do I not have a TOEI command?
I made it a popular wood for hockey sticks as well as boxes, barrel staves, and it was once used to make wooden automobile bodies, as the fibers held screws unusually well. I really like how this one turned out. North Dakota won our latest Patreon poll to choose our next state pretty handily.
My dad wrote a fantasy book. I still have to read it, but that's really cool. I like to read fiction.
It looks great up on the board, and it's a good reminder to be careful with how we treat our native plants and ecosystems. Let me know if you've got any nice mature American elms still alive around your area, and tell me what state you hope to see next.
All right, guys, we are gonna take a break, and we are gonna start arranging. A couple things need to happen for us to arrange these beats. What is this fantasy book your dad wrote about? Well, first we gotta plug in. Never mind. To get rid of that buzz, I would need to move things around. Okay, then let me explain it. I've heard the Star Wars was good. Yes, some of them. I read a lot of the old Star Wars books pre-Disney. So, like, I still kind of have a chip on my shoulder about them all being made legends. What did Toei say? I also read novels. Oh, man. The Halo books are very good. Okay, we'll do them in order. So right off the bat, we have this one. That sounds a bit better. Oh. Oh, penny gnome's interesting. That's cute. That's a cute idea. I've yet to read any of the post-Disney Star Wars stuff. I don't hate it, but it does super annoy me that I don't. Yeah, same, Toei. And I think part of the problem, too, that I don't like about it is, like, there are things that they are still using from it, which kind of bothers me. You know, like, or, like, they're using certain aspects of it, but then changing it a little bit or doing whatever with it. And so it's like, I mean, I get you want to use what you already have, but either use it or don't use it, you know? Yeah, okay, I know. We're gonna do a pretty normal way that I would arrange it. Five years, wow. Did he self-publish it? Is it like on Amazon? Yeah, it's on Amazon. I can't italicize it, but it's called The Land of the Penny Gnomes. Very nice. That sounds cool. So maybe something like this. I like this. Z, welcome in. How are you guys? Do check out our friend Commander Zion, who's an awesome friend of the channel. How are you, my friend? Good to see you. They're all for you. Just have to sign up with email. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, let me see. Let's see. You going through all these effects makes me remember that these two really cool plugins that I have. One is an auto pan that generates random gate patterns, and the other, the same thing but for panning. And there's a third one for filters. Sure, yeah, send it to me. Welcome back, Coach. How are you? You're doing well? I am also doing well. Enjoying the music. Today's the first day, Z, of my new schedule where I'm going to be teaching English. Luckily, it's not a bad day today, just 2 classes, so we'll see how it goes. Feeling pretty good. Yeah, so my wife is officially on maternity leave. All right, so that's one track. Now, oh, and you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to take the effects off of these because we record them dry. Just makes it easier for editing later. Now, there's this pattern. All right, it's in Discord. Thank you. Oh man, they're starting today, Josh. We're gonna see how it goes. But again, I feel pretty good about it. Ooh, what if we do like... You got this, what they said? Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay. So, right off the bat, we're gonna do 8, so no. Maybe this? Five, 6, 7, 8. Here's the problem. That should definitely go back here. This should definitely go back here. Let's try that again. We need the bass to come in there. It just sounds too empty. we go. Yeah. Then probably it'll just be the normal. No, we still want it to be a little crazy. And then at the end, we'll take out the arpeggiator. Add that. Let's hear how that sounds. Huh? Maybe this is it? Nice. I can't believe we're releasing a Jam Selection Volume 3. I was thinking about it. So Jam Selection Volume 1 came out in 2021, Volume 2, 2022, Volume 3, 2023, right? And this one is like, you know, one last jam. I'm running out of jam names, so we're only going to do one more jam-themed album. We'll still do Jamuary in the future, but not quite the way we've been doing the last 3 years. Crazy. Like, definitely my most popular albums. I'm excited. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. It sounds weird without it. The drum pattern is a vibe, right? I'm so excited for Jam Selection Volume 3, you guys. Like, for real. So excited. All right, this track sounds great. I'm excited about it. Let's get the effects off. We'll add those back in the DAW. I don't think there even is a lead line on here, but we're just going to take it all off anyway. Just to make sure. Man, that sounds so different. Okay. One of my friends was asking me to explain reverb. And I was like, oh, that's a interesting one. Welcome, Raiders. Maya Raid. Guys, Maya is a member of a Nav Seer. Welcome in, Toey and Daniel. Good to see you. Maya is a member of a Nav Seer, which is the incredible gaming community I'm part of. You can check out our card right over there in the chat. Fantastic. Fantastic. Maya, how was your stream? How was the rest of Fortnite? Did you end up winning any games? Reverb is a collection of delays in small succession. I mean, yeah. I just explained it in the way of that, like, it's like, you know, being in a big room. But hi, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Johnny Bailey. I'm an independent music producer. I grew up in Chicago, and I'm currently living in Japan. We normally stream music production, which is what we're doing today, but we do play games as well. But this month is January, which is like Inktober, but for musicians. So all of our streams this month are going to be making music and jamming out and having a good time. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Always good to see you, man. Did you end up winning any games? So this one sounds good. Then we got this one. Bye, May. I love you. Thank you for the lurk, Z. Appreciate and love you too. We're gonna go hi-hats first, yeah. Okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So at the beginning, no kick, no snare. We'll do hats in the chords, right? Then we're gonna add in snare and melody, and then we're gonna add in the bass in that, so it'll sound like this. Johnny, unfortunately my OCD is flying up again. Oh, no worries. Have a good one, bro. I love you, Josh. Thank you. And thank you for that raid earlier. I really appreciate it. Thank you. problem, gotta support. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So from here. Aloha, what's up, Oolong? How are you? How was the rest of your stream? Guys, do check out our good friend Oolong Crossing. Fantastic streamer. Honestly, I think Oolong has the most different streams I've ever seen on Twitch, and it's always a joy. Let's hear how it sounds without. It's great. One of my favorite streamers dropped by from Germany. No way. That's awesome. That's super cool. And that's like super far from Hawaii too. Like, isn't that the coolest, one of the coolest parts about streaming? Like you get to meet people and talk with people from all around the world, you know, like that's so incredible. Of course. I was really, really happy to stop in. Carly coming in with a 22-month resub. Guys, check out my good friend KeyCat or Carly, who has not been streaming for a little while, but maybe will come back one day. So give her a follow for when she does. Carly, how are you? Welcome in. My IRL friend, Carly, that we hung out at TwitchCon. Honestly, I'm gonna make this one shorter. Yeah, we're getting rid of 7 and 8, pattern 7 and 8. And this pattern, no, this pattern feels sloppy to me. So we'll do 6 here. Let's hear how that sounds. IRL friend. Carly. How are you, Carly? How are things? And again, you guys, no pressure, of course, but I was asked by some friends from stream, again, actually technically not me, my wife got some messages from some friends of mine from stream asking if we had a registry for stuff we need for the babies. So if you check in the chat, you can see we have some stuff right there. If you are interested in getting something for the twins, which they're due in March, the first full week of March. But again, no pressure, no pressure. It was just brought to my attention by my wife that she was like, hey, like some people from your stream have been messaging me on like social media. So you should do this. So if that is something you're interested in, the link is over there. Guys, I think that's it. This one is going to be pretty short. That's fine. And one of the things we're going to need to do, so this is the first one. The second one, so on this, we have this set. Or does it play random every time? It's random every time. Never mind. We're good. Well, maybe not. What does it sound like if we don't have that on? I may, because it's set to like do it for when it repeats. Yeah. So this one will do random. This one we won't do random. This one will do random. This one we won't do random. Okay, so I want to listen to it one more time, and then I think we're done with this one. Kind of just in time. And again, you guys, so today is the first day where I'm starting a new schedule. For my wife to be able to do maternity leave, I am picking up most of her English classes as well. So on top of everything else I'm doing, I'm also now teaching a bunch of English classes during the week. So for my streams, for you guys, it's Sunday and Monday. For me, it's Monday and Tuesday streams. I have to end rather promptly to make sure I have enough time to do everything because I have to go from here to teach the classes. Also, we may mess with some new stream times, you know, depending on how I'm feeling after getting settled into this schedule. Maybe I'll do some nighttime streaming for me, which would be early morning streams for a lot of people. Yeah, this is one of my new times, Oolong. I moved from Wednesday to Monday. I have time. And I'm only streaming twice a week now instead of 3 times a week. And of course, if it's too much for me, I'm gonna stop and take a break and such. But I think I can manage. I am going to be very busy. This is true. But also, it's one of those things, honestly, I feel... That's it, guys, that's it. Honestly, I feel very happy and I feel blessed. With more kids coming, 3 kids, that's a lot more income we're going to need. And so me being able to work this time while my wife is on leave is not just helpful for her bosses, but it's very helpful for us to maintain income. Music making and streaming and stuff does bring in income. So I can't just stop doing it. I actually picked up another part-time job as well, just a few hours a week, that pays decently well. So again, more income. It's just very helpful. So I feel very happy. Even though I'm going to be busy, it feels very manageable to me, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to make enough to provide for my family. And we will have a trimmed budget as well. Yeah, thank you. Let's go ahead and find somebody to raid. And let's listen to this one. Oh, hey. Let's look for somebody. our good friend Aquathor is playing The Witcher 3, which is a fantastic game. I don't see... It does not look like I have any musicians on right now. So let's raid our good friend Aquathor. Alright, guys. Oh, that's why it sounds weird. Here we go. You guys know the drill. Raid message 1 for subs, raid message 2 for non-subs. I actually have a couple of announcements. Again, I am starting a new schedule this week, so if I'm kind of out and about and not able to pop into your streams, that is why. You guys do check out my single that just came out, Welcome to Topop City, which I named after Toei and made for him and such. It's a fun single. It's actually a very fun vibe and a really fun single. Do check it out. And do check out my socials. I post every day. So if you want to see me while I'm not here on Twitch, that would be probably the best way to get a hold of me and find me. Do check out Nav. Our card is there. I highly recommend everyone on there. I love them all very much. Our Discord link is on there as well if you would like to hang out off stream. And I think that's it. I will be back tomorrow with more January, so I will see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Love you guys.